Welcome back to the Pursuit of Progress podcast, where real estate, mindset, and momentum collide. I'm Adam, joined by my co-host Ben, and today we're going to be unpacking 4 really toxic money habits that we see all the time, even in people who should know better. Now, these habits, they don't just hold you back, they keep you broke, stuck, and just spinning your wheels. So let's break them down, give you the tools to replace them with habits that actually build wealth and freedom. Ben, what is going on, brother? How are you doing today?
Oh man, so glad to be here. We got some great content. You know me, I always love talking money. I love talking investments, and it's something that's really, really needed. I was out at lunch today and we were just talking about American financial literacy and how there's just a crisis in, American consumerism is such a disease. And that's because there's never any conversation about it. We're not taught this in school. Parents a lot of times don't know because they never develop these skills. So very, very important if you're someone that wants to get ahead in your personal life, your career, and everywhere else.
Absolutely, man.
Now let me ask you this. What do you think of my new gear right here?
You're looking very professional.
Got some new headphones.
Looking good, man. Hopefully, get some of that raspiness out of my voice, or maybe it just intensifies it for you. So let's just first off, though, kind of preface our conversation today with a little bit of a backstory on how this topic even came to light and just why we wanted to share it with our audience today. So if you guys are on the video version, you can see that both Ben and I are holding up a book on the screen. And this is Dan Martell, who's somebody that I probably kind of learned about a little bit more later than Ben did, but definitely an awesome, very inspirational entrepreneur. Just a great story. Actually went from being in rehab at 17 to totally turning his life around, ended up building a couple of software businesses that ended up selling and creating a net worth for him of over 100 million. So this book that I showed on the video version, if you guys aren't watching video, by the way, make sure you guys check us out on YouTube. Every single episode of The Pursuit of Progress is full video version on YouTube. But this book is just really inspirational, but also I think very just kind of practical. And Ben, you're actually a little bit more aligned with Dan Martell's, some of the stuff he teaches and his principles, because you actually used him as a coach. Tell us a little bit about that before we dive in.
Yeah, it was really, really great. The reason I was attracted to Dan Martell is I just thought he had phenomenal content. And that is how I was introduced. I thought his long form content was very good. I thought there was tremendous amount of value in his shorter content, his reels, 30, 60 seconds. And so that's kind of how I got turned on. From there, he had his book out, Buy Back Your Time. I started reading that. And then I saw that he was advertising coaching. So I ended up working with him, some group coaching for about 3 months, and a lot of really just incredible people on those calls. You would, folks that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in revenue, millions of dollars a month in revenue. So you're on these calls with other highly influential and very successful people. But then the lessons that you're learning on these calls as well was just so incredible. And one of the biggest lessons for me was goal setting and how impactful that was. And I'm going to bring that up a little bit later in the podcast here just to share that with everyone. But yeah, really, really impactful.
Yeah, if you guys are curious about learning a little bit more about Dan Martell, again, the name of the book is Buy Back Your Time. And his podcast is, if you just look up the Dan Martell Method, but he just does a great job with, is actually, just to be completely transparent with you guys, somebody that I really aspire to be more like when it comes to just being a really good communicator. He's very efficient with how he presents his different points and tactics and tools, all that good stuff. And something that I know just I'm working on. You guys are learning it firsthand just from listening to me, but just the value per second rather than seconds of value, just being really good with being well-spoken and just delivering a lot of, very actionable tips in a very short period of time. Most of his podcast episodes are under 20 minutes. So check that out. But let's just go ahead and dive in, Ben. Why don't you go ahead and start us off with, again, guys, we're sharing 4 money habits that keep ambitious people stuck. And we'll start with habit 1.
Yeah, this is a really big one. Taking advice from the wrong people. You'd never ask someone who's never bought a home how to write a winning offer, would you? So why are we taking money advice from broke friends, negative family members, or people who haven't built anything? And that's something that always cracks me up. That's why I am so inspired by just trying to help folks with financial literacy. And some of the pushback that I get sometimes is, well, because one of the things that I say is that we're not taught this anywhere. We're not taught it in school. For a lot of high schools, elementary schools, there's no financial literacy classes. When you think about the subjects that we learn, we learn all these different things: math, science, English. I'm not saying that those things are not good, they're not appropriate, but you could go in algebra 2 or geometry in high school, take that class, and then never literally ever use any of those concepts again, depending on what career field you go into. But what is one thing that all of us are going to use, regardless of what career we go into? Um, what is that one thing? It's money. And so how to manage your money is so absolutely critically important, but we don't teach it. And so the pushback that I always get is that this should be taught at home. And I always say, well, it can't be taught at home because 80% of Americans are either living paycheck to paycheck or have less than a $2,000 emergency fund saved. So 80% of Americans are broke. So we can't learn this from our parents because they never developed the habits. But you want to make sure that you're not taking advice from, or you want to make sure that you're not taking advice from the wrong people. And we all have that friend, and we've all seen those people that loves to give their 2 cents about anything. And I've always said that I can be polite, I can be respectful. I don't have to have an opinion, and just move on. I would also say be aware of the person that knows everything. Have you ever met that person? Well, I have this book that I want to recommend. Well, no, I already know that concept. I know who that author is. I know what they're talking about. Have you thought about this? No, they have all of the answers. For someone that already has all of the answers, you can't grow. You have to be willing to learn. And so you don't want to be around that person that knows everything. Also, this is probably the biggest one. Surround yourself with people who already have what you want. Identify what you want and then figure out who already has that. If you want to have a flourishing career in sales, who is the best salesman that you know? If you want to get in shape at the gym, go find a bodybuilding or a physical fitness coach. And that's, I would say, something that I learned a little bit later in my kind of career or journey. I would say more in the last 10 years, I started to kind of develop some of these relationships. And along those same lines, not just people that you want to be, but find those mentors, those coaches, and those peers that are ahead of you. I'm going to share one more quick story, and then I'll let you pop on here. But I love sharing this story because it's so relevant. When I moved back, I've been in the mortgage industry for my entire career, but there was a period where I was in underwriting for about 10 years, and then I finally went over to origination or sales. When you're in underwriting, you're on a salary. You know how much you're going to get paid. Every paycheck is consistent. When you move into origination, that's considered sales, and you're 100% commission. And so when I was being recruited for this new role, I found the most successful originator in the state of Colorado at that time. This is back in 2016. And I said, I will come work for you if you allow me to sit right outside of your office, because I believe that if I can listen to how you talk to your customers, if I can watch your habits, how you behave, how you engage over the phone, in person, I will learn. And I felt that just by being in close proximity to you, that success will just naturally drop on me. And it did. And it really completely changed my career. So there are powers in having powerful mentors and people who already have what you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it reminds me of the Pareto principle, which we've talked about in a few other episodes, which is basically the 80-20 rule, which can be kind of described and kind of made relevant in different types of scenarios. But for this specific one, just talking about how you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. So really kind of just urge the audience to be mindful of that and make an effort to try and always be bringing people into that circle that are better than you in certain respects. Maybe you have somebody, if you're really trying to get better with your finances, don't surround yourself with a bunch of people that are in debt and maxing out on their credit cards and going out to the bars every weekend and not working find the tribe of people that you want to be closer to emulating. And it's crazy how quickly that's going to dramatically improve your personal finances and just your mindset on a lot of this stuff. That's a really big one that you shared. So I agree 110% on that.
Yeah, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to go find a new room. We have the NBA draft coming up here. I think it's later this week or next week. But the number 1 overall projected pick, Cooper Flagg, his mom used to always tell him that if you are the best player in the gym, you're better than everyone else, you need to go find a new gym. If you aren't around people that are better than you, you're not going to be able to grow.
Mhm. Then my last just takeaway on this first of 4 habits is just talking a little bit more about what you're saying a second ago about don't always just listen to the people that are really loud and always sharing advice. Just understand that, there's a big difference between loud advice and wise advice. And just because somebody's giving you advice doesn't mean that has to be taken seriously or even, agreed with. So just, make sure you're always kind of weighing both sides of the story and just very intentional about who you're gathering your content from, your info, whatever it is that you're trying to get better at.
Yeah. What do we got for number 2, Adam?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and now jump into number 2. So number 2, habit 2 is wasting time to save money. So if you're still mowing your own lawn, as an example, while still also trying to build a 6-figure income or maybe manage rental properties like Ben does, it's time to rethink things. And I'm going to use Ben as an example. He can chat a little bit more about this personally and share his story. But, just an example of Ben's not down in Tucson, Arizona with his rental properties, mowing the lawn, fixing a leaky toilet, things that are still very important jobs. And we appreciate people that do that kind of stuff. But for Ben's scenario there, having other people do those things, which frees up his time to focus more on the higher value activities, the stuff that's really moving the needle forward and is actually generating more income. So, you think about this, every hour spent on like a $15 an hour task is an hour stolen from something that maybe could be generating a $500 an hour outcome. And just a little tip that I've been really I've personally seen the benefits of doing is just sometime just spend a day or a week. I know it's maybe hard to do a full week, but even just a day, start with a day and just keep a piece of paper next to your desk. Every time you work on something, a different task, whatever it may be, just write it down. And then at the end of the day, just basically look at each of those lines, each of those line items, those different tasks that you've written out, and just kind of put either a dollar amount, maybe a $1 sign as a low dollar amount activity, maybe 4 or 5 dollar signs is a really high value activity. And then just start to look through which of those that are $1 sign or low dollar an hour activities, how can you somehow find a way to delegate that to somebody else? We live in a world now with virtual assistants. I've got a team of 3 that I work with on a daily basis. Ben also has some. It's becoming very mainstream, very easy to bring on, virtual assistants to help you with a lot of this stuff. And I'll just leave you guys with this final point on this part of the topic here. You'd be amazed at how just really qualified even somebody in the Philippines is that speaking English as a second language is to do pretty much anything you can think of. I would just urge you guys to kind of push the boundaries of what you think that they could do. And I bet you they probably can make it happen and do it. So you just have to get a little creative with that. I think this is what really is the game changer from going from just being busy to being effective. I know we've all been there where we've had a day where we've just felt like we can't catch a breath, don't even have time to, grab lunch. But then at the end of the day, we're like, man, why was I so busy today? What did I even get done? And you feel like you didn't accomplish anything. Well, it's probably an indication that you've been working on a lot of low dollar an hour tasks that really just aren't moving the needle forward.
Busy does not equal productive. Busy does not equal efficient. And that's the thing that I think sometimes people trick themselves on. And again, let me just rephrase that or restate that the title to habit number two here. Stop wasting time to save money. I think this is so difficult for people because they always get so focused on the cost versus the value that the cost is going to bring. So they focus on the cost versus the value. And, one of the, sometimes I ask myself, am I doing enough? Am I doing too much myself? Are there any areas in my life that I haven't outsourced or that I can? And so that's why I'm so glad that we're doing this podcast, because it kind of made me realize it's like, you know what? I'm actually doing a decent job at this. And let me just list all of the things that I have outsourced. And a lot of this has been here in the last 5 years. The biggest one was when we hired a live-in nanny. And the cost for this is going to be the highest because we're paying this person, they're living here. But the amount of freedom that brings, absolute game changer. I always say that there are things that are important, but it doesn't mean that I should be the one doing those things. So the things that the nanny does are extremely important. Folding the laundry, doing the dishes, cleaning the house, cleaning the toilets, the bathrooms, mopping and sweeping the floor every day. The reason that those things are so important is because that is what brings peace to the home. And if the home doesn't have peace, what do you have? And so back in 2018, when we hired the nanny, I was a little intimidated at the time because of the cost. But in hindsight, it really is one of the best decisions that I've ever made. Along the same lines, I use a professional landscaper. I have a property manager. For the kids' homework, same thing. I was having those frustrations with the kids. And also keep in mind that a lot of this isn't just about the financial value, it's about the peace of mind value.
Hmm.
It's about the emotional headspace that you're going to clear up. With the homework with the kids, they were getting to a spot to where it was just so stressful to do the homework with them, and we were butting heads and they would get frustrated, and then it would impact our father child relationship. And that's when I decided, kind of when they were in about 5th or 6th grade, to hire a tutor. And so now, I'm still there in the wings. I'm there for second opinions. I'm there to talk through things, but the tutor is responsible for supporting them with their homework, their daily reading, reviewing their attendance at school. I'm not doing that stuff. But when there are concerns, I get alerted. If somebody was late to class, I'm not the one going through this stuff. I just get an email saying, this is what happened today, or there's a brief text message or a conversation. So it allows me to keep my mind off of these small things that are important, and focus on bigger things. The YouTube editor that I use, learning how to use AI is another one. Just very, very impactful. So when you're going through this exercise, really identify what the value is and don't focus on the cost would be my suggestion.
Hmm. Yep, I agree 100% on that one as well. Now let's just jump into habit number 3.
Yeah, habit number 3, playing defense with your money. You can't make decisions out of fear with anything, especially your money. And I was meeting a friend today for lunch, and he's had a really good run in the last couple of years with his roofing business, but he didn't know, what to do, where to invest. And the reason for that is because he's wanting to take some of those steps, but he's never taken them before. And it can be a little bit fearful at times, but you have to learn how to overcome that and take those steps. So, what this individual was doing is he was getting input from others that were 1 or 2 years ahead of him, or a couple years ahead of him, like we just discussed. He wanted to talk to me about investing. He has another friend in another part of the state of Colorado that he wanted to talk to investing about that. So, really, really powerful to not make decisions out of fear. Another example that I use is you can't coupon clip your way to financial freedom. Do you remember that show that was really popular like 10 or 15 years ago? And I can't remember the name of it, but it was about people that would, I think it was like extreme coupons, where people would
Yeah.
go and go to grocery stores and, how much they can buy with all these coupons. And my criticism of that was like, you just got like 20 bags of cheese puffs and a bunch of diet soda that's not even name brand, and you have all this stuff, but it's very cheap. What is the value? Like, I'm not interested in that, because you're playing defense with your money. You're not playing offense. This is another really important one, and I got this from Dan in his book, Buy Back Your Time, but it's really having a strong understanding of what your buyback rate is. And once you want to use this as a foundation to help you decide, some of these tasks, if you should do them yourself or outsource them. And so what you want to do is figure out what your annual salary is, and then you divide that by 2080. So 2080 comes from 52 weeks in a year, working 40 hours a week, and then that will give you your hourly rate. You want to take that hourly rate and then multiply that by 0.25, and that will give you your buyback rate. So as an example, someone who makes a $100,000 salary, divide that by 2080, that'll give you your hourly rate. So in that case, if you're on a $100,000 salary, your hourly rate is $48 an hour. Take $48 an hour, multiply that by 0.25, that comes out to $12 an hour. So in that example, that individual should not be doing any tasks or anything that is less than $12 an hour. And
Hmm.
so when you're thinking through these things, that's how you want to make these decisions. Use that as your framework, and and your foundation. Kind of a couple more things for me on this. One thing that I've learned is that the best investment, Warren Buffett talks about this in addition to Dan Martell, is the best investments you can make is in yourself, developing your skills, growing your mindset, building out your network. Every year, what I do is I set aside a budget that I already have planned that, I have X amount of dollars that I'm using this year to develop myself. And this year, I use that on group coaching with Dan Martell. In the past, I've done other things. I've taken, I took a YouTube class a couple of years ago to kind of introduce myself. But I'm making sure that that investment in myself is top of mind, and I want to do that. And then finally, learning how to bet on yourself even when it feels uncomfortable. And this is a really, really big one that I think a lot of people really struggle with. I know that I have at times, but just kind of going back to that quote from earlier in the show, a decision not to grow is a decision to die slowly. And that comes from Buy Back Your Time on page 12. When I moved back to Denver, Colorado, it was uncomfortable because the home that I sold in Phoenix, Arizona was 200,000 and the home that I bought here in Colorado at the time was 500,000. This is back in 2015. So it was 2.5 times more expensive, very uncomfortable. When I left my salary job for a role that was 100% commission, extremely uncomfortable. Can I do this? Can I provide for my family? Can I do all these things? Very uncomfortable. When I bought my first investment property that was out of state, same thing, extremely uncomfortable. But you want to learn how to make yourself uncomfortable because that is ultimately how you go on offense and how you grow.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that, my final takeaway on point 3 here is just every dollar that you invest in the right thing, key there is in the right thing, whether it's a course, maybe a coach, or just any new strategy or just something new that you're trying to better yourself with. That's a seed. So just stop hoarding your money and really just start planting. Use your money as a tool to better improve yourself and put you in a position to get even further in life. So I think that's something that's just a commonality with all very, very successful people is they have a completely different mindset around money. Yeah, we are talking about, playing defense with your money. However, when used in the right lanes, used in the right way, it can compound and only, work for you instead of against you. So with that, let's jump into the fourth and final habit.
Yeah.
Habit number 4, making money the main goal. So you don't need more zeros. What you really need is just more meaning. So there's another great book by Simon Sinek, Your Why, finding out what your why is. And that's basically just, similar to what we're talking about here, which is just your purpose is a lot more important than your paycheck. And you find that anybody that is really, really successful and just enjoying what they're doing is because they have a greater purpose than whatever dollar amount they're getting paid for that mission that they have. So just really just, finding something that you're passionate about and you have a purpose behind. True wealth is really when your work fuels something bigger than just you yourself. So look for your purpose that's near your pain, and chances are they're probably connected. What about you, Ben? What do you feel on this one?
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. I think defining that purpose and having a really clear vision for yourself and a plan and how to execute it. Yet we all have to have a very, very compelling vision for ourselves, and that's maybe one of my concerns for some of these younger folks in this younger generation. I'm around high school kids a lot because my kids are in high school. I also do coaching. I'll ask the kids, what is your plan for yourself? What is your vision? I get it. You're not going to know, but a lot of times I can't even get like what inspires you, what encourages you, what do you want to do? And it's just, I'm not able to get a lot of passion or emotion. And to me, I want to be able to just have freedom. I believe that freedom is the real flex, freedom of your time, freedom of your money, freedom to be able to live the life that you want. And I also want to be able to grow my net worth. I want to be able to do those things and accomplish those things through cash appreciating assets. And so that's why I'm so big on investing. I don't want to go invest so I can go live larger. I want to go invest so I can have more freedom of time, more freedom of choice, and really live the way that I want, not so I can go consume more or buy more things. As an example, my daughter right now, and I've shared this before, she's very serious into running. And I decided that I wanted to start to document some of this stuff and start to document her story. And so I contacted a local videographer here, and we are now going to do a 7 or 8 episode season just chronicling her summer training into fall and her upcoming cross country season. And there is a tremendous cost to that. That's not cheap. It's, multiple thousands of dollars. But it's something that I value because I know that she's going to be able to look back on this. We all are in 20 years and just really have incredible memories and reminisce in a way that we wouldn't otherwise. So this project is something that I have very, very high value on. But the reason I can do it is because I don't have my money going towards things that I don't value. I don't have the $1,500 car payment. I don't have the portfolio of Rolex watches, all of these other things that just erode your money. And so learning how to value, learning to understand what you want in freedom is a really, really big factor.
Love that. Well, you guys, I'm super excited to watch that. So we'll be sure to, share with you guys. Hopefully that'll be available on YouTube and can publish that video once it's out. So I know I'm excited to watch it and see how it all comes out.
And guess what it's called?
The Pursuit.
It's called In Pursuit.
In Pursuit.
In Pursuit. That's what we called it. All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap here. And these money habits and all money habits might seem harmless, but you got to really believe me, they compound and they stack up. If you're stuck at how you're thinking about money, how you're looking at money, who you're listening to, and what you're avoiding, pay attention. Pay attention to this and these other principles. I just want to say thanks for having us today. If this episode hits home, send it to a friend. We drop new episodes every Friday as a reminder. And if you haven't already, check out the full video versions each week on YouTube. Have a positive and productive week, and we'll see you next time on the Pursuit of Progress podcast. We'll see you guys later.
See you guys. Have a good one.